Okay, we're back on Google Docs. So, I am going to look at the noosphere, essentially collective consciousness, as planetary aspect. Alright. First, what is the noosphere? Well, the term noosphere comes from the Greek nous, mind, and sphaira, sphere. It was coined by the French philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin and the Russian scientist Vladimir Vernadsky in the early 20th century. They proposed that just as the Earth has a lithosphere, rock, a hydrosphere, water, and an atmosphere, air, it also has a noosphere, a sphere of mind, a planetary layer of consciousness. And Teilhard saw the noosphere as the next stage of evolution, the emergence of a collective human consciousness that would eventually envelope the planet and merge with the divine. Vernadsky saw it more scientifically as the transformation of the biosphere by human thought and labor. Both were right, and both were missing the quantum dimension. Let's observe the noosphere in quantum terms. So the noosphere is the entangled wave function of all conscious beings on Earth. Every thought, every emotion, every intention contributes to this wave function. When enough minds align, the wave function coheres, becomes organized, resonant, powerful. A coherent noosphere can influence Earth's response to transits, communicate with non-human intelligences, collapse planetary scale probabilities, modify the physical environment. The noosphere isn't metaphor, it's measurable. Measuring the unmeasurable. The Berkowitz-Lancaster noosphere monitor. So let's talk about, the first device capable of measuring noospheric coherence, the BLNM, Berkowitz-Lancaster noosphere monitor. And how it works, the BLNM uses an array of squid magnetometers, superconducting quantum interference devices, placed at strategic locations around the globe. These devices detect minute fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field. But not all fluctuations are magnetic. Some are consciousness-related. And when large numbers of humans focus attention on the same thing, a global event, a shared emotion, a collective intention, the BLNM detects a coherent spike. The random fluctuations of the magnetic field become organized, patterned. And here's what we found. Global events produce coherent spikes. The 2020 pandemic lockdown, shared fear and isolation produced a 35% increase in coherence. Olympic Games, shared attention, and so forth. So now what I want to do is show you about my previous video where I talked about Earth's natal chart. We can essentially see the noosphere and Earth's chart together. And we can remember from the previous lecture, Earth has a sun in Taurus, Venus in Gemini, Mars in Cancer, Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Sagittarius. So for example, when the noosphere coheres, Earth aspects activate differently. Coherent noosphere can amplify certain transits or mitigate others. So Saturn in Aries until 2028, it's restructuring Earth's identity, and this could manifest as increased boundary enforcement, being wars, nationalism, identity crises, cultural conflicts, existential angst, and definition of self. Who is Earth? What are her limits? But if the noosphere is coherent, these manifestations change, so a coherent humanity might redefine identity in inclusive rather than exclusive terms, establish boundaries that protect rather than exclude, and navigate identity crises with wisdom rather than violence. The noosphere is Earth's choice mechanism. Through us, Earth chooses how to respond to her transits. Now let's look at the noosphere and human charts. Just as Earth's chart nests human charts, the noosphere mediates the relationship. So for example, when you experience a transit, you're not just experiencing the planet's influence, you're experiencing it filtered through the collective consciousness. We have Pluto in Aquarius until 2044. It's transforming networks. For an individual, this might manifest as changes in friend groups, transformation of online presence, power dynamics in communities, but the flavor of this transit depends on the noosphere's coherence. So if the noosphere is incoherent, like fragmented or conflict-ridden, Pluto in Aquarius manifests as online warfare, cancel culture, surveillance states, and digital addiction. But if the noosphere is coherent, unified, compassionate, it manifests as genuine global community, collective intelligence, democratic information systems, and healing of digital divides. Essentially, your personal chart shows the potential, and the noosphere shows the collective context that shapes how that potential actualizes. Let's talk about the noosphere and NHI contact. So Remember when I taught you that the NHIs noticed when the noosphere coheres, the TRAPPIST-1 signal was a response to a coherent spike? Well, why? Because a coherent noosphere is visible in ways an incoherent one isn't. Think of it as a lighthouse. When humanity's consciousness is scattered, it's like a million tiny candles barely visible from afar. When it coheres, it's like a beacon, bright, focused, impossible to ignore. And non-human intelligences are not interested in us as individuals. They're interested in us as a planetary consciousness. They're waiting for us to become coherent enough to have a meaningful conversation, right? So let's work with the noosphere. I didn't go over the TCI, but I will give like a sample chart. I'm using my own chart just to show you. So through the noosphere, for example, Sun and Pisces in the 11th house, without even looking at the degrees, but Pisces is the sign of dissolution, of merging with the whole, and the 11th house is the house of collectives, networks, and communities. So we know that the native's identity is designed to merge with the noosphere. They don't just participate in collective consciousness, they are collective consciousness individuated. When the noosphere coheres, this native feels it directly, and their sense of self expands to include the whole. When it fragments, they feel that too, as confusion, anxiety, loss of self. All right. I want to give you the quantum mechanics too. So the noosphere is an entangled quantum field. Every conscious being is a node in this field. When two nodes entangle, they form a link, and when many nodes entangle, they form a network. So the coherence we measured is the degree of entanglement in this network, and high coherence means many nodes are strongly entangled. Low coherence means entanglement is weak or fragmented. Here's the key. Entanglement is not limited by space. When the noosphere coheres in Tokyo, it instantly affects the noosphere in New York. And there's no single signal delay because there's no signal. It's one field. And this is why global events produce instantaneous coherence spikes. When millions watch the same event, their consciousness entangled through shared attention. Let's talk about the noosphere and quantum gravity. There's actually a deeper layer, so recent work suggests that the noosphere may be connected to quantum gravity, the yet unsolved theory that unifies quantum mechanics and general relativity. So if consciousness is a fundamental field, as some physicists propose, then it interacts with spacetime itself. A coherent noosphere might actually curve spacetime, create tiny gravitational fluctuations that affect planetary transits. And this is speculative, but it would explain why NHIs notice coherent spikes. They're not just detecting our thoughts, they're detecting ripples in the fabric of reality. Let's look at this arc for 2026 through 2100. You know, shit's gonna get really crazy. More than it already has been. But this is the period of the great reweaving, the emergence of a coherent planetary consciousness. And here are the stages of the noospheric development. We have Pluto in Aquarius, which is the network phase. Humanity builds the technological infrastructure for global consciousness, the internet, AI, quantum communication, but technology alone isn't enough, right? It must be matched by intentional coherence. Next, we have Neptune in Aries, which is the dissolution phase. Boundaries between self and other, human and machine, earth and cosmos begin to dissolve. This is disorienting but necessary. The old ego must die for the planetary self to be born. Next, until 2033, we have Uranus in Gemini, the rewiring phase. Communication systems transform. The noosphere develops new channels, direct mind-to-mind connection, collective dreaming, and shared intuition. Until 2050 through 2070, there's an air triplicity maturation. The integration phase, the noosphere stabilizes. Humanity learns to maintain coherence without external triggers. And then we have Pluto in Pisces in 2080 through 2100. Transcendence phase. The noosphere merges with the galactic field, and humanity joins the community of conscious planets. Alright? Of course, we have ethics in this video. Thought pollution, just as we have physical pollution, we have noospheric pollution, negative thoughts, fear-based emotions, intentional division. These lower coherence, they harm the collective, of course. Coherence as a resource. High coherence is valuable. It attracts NHI attention, it amplifies intention, it heals, but it can also be exploited. Governments, corporations, or other actors might try to manipulate coherence for their own ends. The right to incoherence. Not everyone wants to be coherent. Some value privacy, solitude, independence. A healthy noosphere must allow for both coherence and individuality, the wave and the particle. Our NHI interaction. When the noosphere coheres, NHIs notice, are we ready for that? Do we have protocols for collective contact? and we are developing them, but they're not yet tested. So now let's get into some questions. Can one person's coherence affect the whole? Yes. The noosphere is a field. A single coherent individual can raise the local TCI, and that ripple propagates. This is why meditation matters. This is why kindness matters. Every coherent act contributes. In quantum terms, one strongly entangled node can pull others into coherence through a process called superradiance. It's like a laser. One excited atom can trigger a cascade. What about dark noosphere, collective negative coherence? It exists. Mass hysteria, mob violence, propaganda-driven consensus. These are coherent but destructive. Coherence is neutral. It's the contact of coherence that matters. All right? Can we measure individual contributions to the noosphere? Not yet. All right? We are working on it, though. The personal coherence monitor is in development, a device that would show you your own contribution to the field. Essentially, for our next session regarding this, we'd monitor your own sense of connection to the collective for 1 week, note when you feel in sync with others and when you feel isolated, correlate these feelings with global events, and write a 500-word reflection on your personal relationship to the noosphere. Subscribe, like, and comment, and in the next video, I'll see you talking about planetary synastry, Earth's relationship with other worlds. Thank you, with peace and love.